Queuing, or more importantly, British people queuing. It's one of the most important things in our society, isn't it? It's got so many unwritten rules that we must abide by to keep social cohesion and avoid basically rioting in the streets. Queuing is the most important thing in British life. It's actually the number one irritant in British life. In many repeated polling of British people, and there's been many data gathered by different scientific research polls across Britain, and the results of those are absolutely fascinating. Did you know there is a difference in how long we are prepared to wait related to which city we come from? And there is even an incredible paradox with how David Beckham queues, and there's also some very curious things that airports do to make us think that we are not waiting so long. So let's get straight into it. The Brits and queuing. So it is, as I said, the number one irritant in modern life that Brits repeatedly say comes above bad drivers, loud eaters, late trains. It is the number one irritant for Brits. Why is that? What are the unwritten rules? Well, there was a scientific study done in 2017 by UCL, University College London, by Professor Andy Furnham. And after their extensive research observing people in UK streets, doing things like admin, queuing for ATMs and things like this, that British people will abandon a queue after 5 minutes 54 seconds. They found that after 5 minutes, or at the point of 5 minutes, satisfaction of people in queues was still at 95%. Immediately after 5 minutes, satisfaction dropped down to 85%, and then at 5 minutes 54 seconds, the satisfaction rate dropped down to 55%. So that's huge in less than a minute, the drop off there. And that's when people will abandon a queue and go and do something else better in their life. And in the media, this 5 minutes 54 was pumped up to the rule of 6, because there were 3 things to do with 6. So they called it 6 minutes that you abandon the queue. British people are extremely reluctant to join a queue that has more than 6 people. And 6 inches behind you. So what's that, about 15 centimeters? If the person behind you encroaches on that 6-inch barrier and gets too close to you, invading your personal space, that's a real off-putter and is going to result in some trouble ahead. So the rule of 6, those are our unwritten rules in British life about queuing. But what's your policy for queue jumpers? Woo! Are you a true Brit, and if someone jumps in the queue, you passively aggressively stare at the back of their head? Or tut, maybe, or sigh or mutter to someone next to you? I have to say that as I get older, I have noticed that I am doing something that I would say is probably not the normal procedure for me, is that I will actually tap the person on the shoulder and say, "Hey, we are queuing here," or "You've jumped in, mate," or something. Usually resulting in bants or something slightly more aggressive from the queue jumper. It has to be done though. We have to maintain order. What is society without these unwritten rules? Especially in England, my God. So what do you do when there's a queue jumper? Are you having a go? Are you standing up for the rules, or do you just let it pass? I have a story from when I was just coming back in that incredible heat wave that the whole of Europe was going through, where we were waiting in an airport, foreign airport, and the airport staff, because it was 39 degrees outside, said that we're going to hold you here in the airport, which is air conditioned and cool, until the plane has cleared of all the passengers and you can get straight onto the plane without waiting on the tarmac, which I found very refreshing. Airport staff actually thinking. So we didn't have to wait in the, what's it called, gangway, not the airport bridge. It was a gangway, because then it went out onto some outside stairs and then we had to cross the tarmac. So it wasn't the airport bridge that gets you straight into the door, because it was Ryanair. So they're not going to pay for an airport bridge, are they? So we got outside. It was incredibly hot, but mercifully, there was some shade there by an actual airport bridge. And we were waiting in the queue because, you know, people are getting on. And even though they left it to the last minute, people are slow getting on planes, aren't they? Ridiculous. So the queue was coming down the Ryanair steps of the plane, across the tarmac, and then there was shade. Cooling shade from the blistering sun. So when I got to the limit of this airport bridge shade, I let the queue go a little bit until it got to the, I was hoping until it got to the next bit of shade, which was the aeroplane itself. The old couple behind me, who were Brits, because I heard them talking, just went past me. Okay, I hadn't explained to them that I'm waiting here in the shade, so let's just cool our jets for a minute and wait until the next shade is available till we move forward. But no, they just stormed past after, I would say, there was maybe 2 spots in front of me. So they weren't in the shade yet. They stormed past, they didn't say a word, they didn't say, are you waiting or are you moving? Nothing. They stormed past and then stood in the burning hot sun for about 5 minutes. And the 2 young lads behind them, who were also British, they went in front as well. So, oh my God. Why are people so incensed? That's just common sense. I know it's an irritant about queuing, but you are not going to get on the plane any quicker and you're actually going to stand in the burning sun. Absolute stupidity. And a lack of manners to speak to the person before you just barge past them, isn't it? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you've got a queuing story that has riled you. I imagine there is quite a lot of Brits that are going to have monstrous, hideous queuing stories this summer because of the EES, the European entry system at airports, where Brits without a European passport have to get fingerprinted and all that kind of malarkey. I really hope you haven't been caught up in a 4-hour queue and missed your flight. Fortunately, thank you, Grandad, I've got an Irish passport. So I'm very, very lucky about avoiding this. What about the British cities? If you're Steven Gerrard or Liam Gallagher, there's a difference in how long you are prepared to wait. So it is very important though. Brits, according to some polls, spend 51 minutes a week queuing in a physical queue. 51 minutes, which over a lifetime is 47 days. And if you add to that things like gridlock on the motorway, internet, waiting for something to upload or download, there's actual estimates that British people can use 1 to 2 years of their lives queuing. So that's why it's so important to us. And therefore, it's incredibly interesting, the difference between different cities. The most patient city, according to polling of 5,000 people in the UK, is, what do you think? Do you think it's up north, down south? It's actually Liverpool. Well done, Liverpool. All you Scousers. 6 minutes and 47 seconds is how long Steven Gerrard and his family will apparently wait in a queue. My brother lives in Liverpool, and when I go up to see him, I'm always amazed by the friendliness and talkative of the Scousers. Okay, I'm out in the day mostly, going to museums and great civic buildings, things like that. So I'm seeing the best of the Liverpudlians. I'm not out at night in the pubs and clubs where it might be getting a bit tasty. But 6 minutes 47 seconds, the most patient British city. Next one down is Cardiff. Then there's Manchester, 5 minutes 48 seconds that the Gallaghers are waiting. And then it's London, 5 minutes 54 seconds is the patience threshold for Londoners. So not far off Manchester. But then the least patient city in England, I was very shocked. I'm sure you can't guess this unless maybe you're from this city or you know someone from this city. The least patient city with 4 minutes and 54 seconds. So almost a minute less patient, more irritated than London, is Plymouth. What's going on, Plymouth? Have you got so much to do in Plymouth that you just can't hang around at all in a queue? Are they desperate to get their hands on a pint of cider? I've never been to Plymouth. I don't know anything about even the jokey stereotypes. So let me know if you're from Plymouth, if there's something in the water that's making people irritated about queuing. But another fact from these scientific reports is that after 3 minutes, the way that we understand time in our brain as it's passing by speeds up. In fact, after 3 minutes, the human estimate of time is so way off that it actually doubles the amount of time that you believe that you are waiting. Incredible. And what about David Beckham that I mentioned at the beginning? So I'm sure you remember that when Her Royal Highness the Queen Elizabeth II passed this mortal coil, then there was this monstrous queue to go past the coffin and pay your respects. And David Beckham, I didn't say sir because he wasn't sir at that point. I wonder if this has got anything to do with it. He queued in the queue like a normal person, no VIP access, and waited and waited. I think it was something crazy like 11 hours, wasn't it? Weren't the news channels live streaming David Beckham queuing, going around the serpentine queue, those pieces of canvas on the poles? But the paradox for me is that even though David Beckham was heralded as almost saintly for queuing like a normal person for that ungodly amount of time, because he said that that's what his granny and granddad would have done, so he was there for them. It's all good PR stuff, isn't it? However, when David Beckham was in a imaginary queue in his own brain, waiting and waiting for his knighthood to become Sir David Beckham, then he was unbelievably irritated by what he perceived as a queue jumper. Just like all the rest of us Brits, it's the #1 irritant. Do you remember, not many people talk about it, that David Beckham texted somebody, I think in his management company, that when the New Year's honours lists came out and he wasn't Sir, and what's her name? Catherine Jenkinson, that Welsh female who sings at the rugby, sings the national anthem, and I'm misquoting Sir David, but he texted something like OBE for what? For singing at the rugby. And then he said a nasty word that I won't say on YouTube for fear of getting banned. And that text message got leaked. And then he was sitting at Wimbledon this year in the Royal Box, and Catherine Jenkinson was sitting behind him, and he looked furious. Because people are probably remembering that he, like us, rest of us Brits, is irritated by queue jumpers. So what about the psychological tricks that airports use to make us think that we are not queuing so much? If you're in Manchester Airport or East Midlands Airport, sometimes there's a digital display that says queuing time from this point. And if it says 15 minutes, of course your heart sinks and you go, ugh. But actually that's a known overestimate of the time that you will wait. Because when you get through and complete the process in 10 minutes, then you feel that you've won through your own incredible intelligence and cunning and general good luck. You have completed the process and beat the system with 5 minutes to spare. It's done on purpose so that you get a massive dopamine hit and feel amazing about yourself, which means that you will then spend more money in the airport. Isn't that atrocious? And I can back this up with my own personal experience, because when I worked for a FTSE 100 company, I actually had a project with a massive airport up north where we were making an app for them for customers to receive push notifications and all these kind of things about the airport before they got to the airport, such as offers in the shops, these kind of things. Because every single meeting that I had with these bigwigs at the airport, they were talking about profit maximization, just non-stop getting more money out of the customers through this app. A push notification for the car parking special offer, a push notification for duty-free special offer, just on and on and on. And even though I have to say that I thought I had seen everything in corporate and I was jaded, I was shocked about this way that airports are doing everything to get more money out of you. And going back to the queuing, there is psychological trickery going on that was actually started by Disney, and Houston Airport developed it, but it's happening in all British airports now, is that when you are queuing, in your brain, it's the beginning of that hatred. However, if you've started a process, such as the security process, if you are now in your brain, I'm doing security, you don't believe that you are queuing. So that's why, way before you get to the X-ray scanner, you are asked to check your bags for liquids, and then put your toiletries in a plastic bag, and then watch the video about taking your belts off or leaving your electronics in the bag or outside the bag. And so there's all these little tasks that you are given as a psychological putting you into the I'm in security, I'm not queuing, so that when you get to the X-ray scanner, you are not absolutely kicking off. But that's another thing. There's that little wait before you go through the X-ray scanner, isn't there? And there's different methods about this waiting, and then the approach to the X-ray scanner when they usher you forward. So some people are too cool for school, just waiting there, then they just stroll through. Yeah, what's the problem? I've done this a million times. And there are the other people that feel like they are back at school and the headmaster is calling them and they're very nervous, and then when they are ushered to come forward, they go, oh yeah. Very nervous types. What's your methodology for going through the X-ray scanners? I'm sorry to say that I'm approaching that too cool for school and just sauntering through at a very slow pace, like I've done it a million times before, and it's absolutely nothing to me because I'm just a person of the world. How do you do it? And then the other psychological trick that airports are using is the baggage carousel. So in airport design, the baggage carousel is put far away from the planes so that you have to walk there quite a distance, sometimes a circuitous route. Is that what it's called? A long-winded route to get to the baggage, because if you only had to walk 1 minute to the baggage carousel, then you had to queue or wait for 10 minutes, then it's an extremely bad experience for you and you hate that airport and you tell 9 people or whatever. However, if it's the exactly same amount of time, 11 minutes, and you had to walk for 9 minutes and then you only had to queue or wait for 2 minutes for your bag, again, you feel like you've won and you beat the system. Of course, not every aeroplane can park in the same place and be right next to the baggage, but they do, I've read about it, that you do have airports designing the walking route so that it takes up your time, so that you're not waiting so long for your bags, and it gives the baggage handlers the necessary time to get your bags there. All very ingenious, but let's go back to the queuing, the number one irritant, just to prove this once and for all. Probably the most high profile, even more high profile than David Beckham, high profile incident of queuing and queuing irritation and queue jumpers in modern British life was, again, the Queen, the queue to respect and go past the coffin. You must remember, who was it that got caught out? Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby. They jumped the queue, didn't they? Ooh, naughty, naughty. Not more than a slap on the wrist for that? No, 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 no. We are not having that. They got hounded by the media, didn't they? And it turned into a national scandal. And it was actually the beginning of the end for both of them. Okay, with Philip Schofield, there was something quite major happening afterwards, but they had run out of credit, of good credit with the British public, hadn't they, after that queue jumping. No one jumps a queue, not even VIPs. And it was the beginning of the end. There was no way back after that. Philip Schofield, cancelled. Holly Willoughby, she's off television. She's trying to make a comeback. Will she be able to do it? Will we ever forget that queue jumping? It's the number one irritant in modern life for the Brits. and you shouldn't do it. And I want to know, what is your policy when people jump in the queue in front of you? Let's stand up for these unwritten rules, the rule of 6. What are those people doing when they're on your shoulder, when they're breaking that 6-inch barrier? Even if you're in a serpentine queue at the airport or somewhere else with those canvas barriers, do they think that they're going to get round you at the corner? What are they doing? And if you're a queue jumper, you need to rethink the way you are living your life and your values and how you were brought up in life. Because when you are on your deathbed in years to come, and you've got your family, hopefully, around your bed, saying goodbye, you and they are going to know that you are a queue jumper. So you need to cut it out right now and start living like a proper British upstanding member of society and maintain the queue and the rules of the queue till the day you die. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. If you like intriguing questions, quirky UK nostalgia and heartwarming stories, then join me in the next video, subscribe, and if you love Bullseye, I've got a whole series of videos on the best ever game show and best ever host, Sir Jim Bowen, in British life that there ever was. So I'll see you there in that playlist. See you next time. Toodaloo.